Hello, it's Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here today with my week of reading wrap-up. This is where I talk about the books that I read this week, what I'm currently reading, and potentially could read next week based on my mood. It's another week where I didn't get a lot completed, but I have a lot in motion. And but I do have a very controversial DNF that I'm happy to share with you. So let's get started with what I finished. So I was able to get the audio for a book that was on the long list for the Women's Prize, and this was Djinn Patrol on the Purple Line by Deepa Anaparra. The moment I heard it, I thought, oh, I really want to try this book. It's a book about a young boy who is growing up in an unnamed city in India, and one of his schoolmates goes missing. And he's kind of precocious and considers himself to be a detective. He loves all the detective shows on television and wants to solve this mystery. And as we go through his eyes and trying to understand what's happening in this city, other children start to go missing. And so there's as with any kind of stories told through the lens of a child, there's all these misunderstandings and that we can see that he can't. I found this absolutely delightful. The audiobook was very, very well done. And I think that it gave this very rich character study of a community and in a community in crisis. It really was the perfect thing to pull me back into audiobook listening and encouraged me to go out and walk and listen to an audiobook. So for that, I'm very, very thankful. So I gave it a 3.5 star, 4 star, because I really enjoyed it. The next book I finished, I can't talk too much about because I'm waiting for my buddy so we can kind of share thoughts, and he hasn't checked in yet. But we read The Good Terrorist by Doris Lessing. The story is placed in the Margaret Thatcher era of UK politics. And so we have a lot of turmoil, a lot of unemployment. We have this main character, Alice, who is just, the complexity of this character is remarkable. She's incredibly handy, incredibly capable of getting things done, of doing things and moving things forward. At the same time, she is absolutely insufferable when it comes to standing on her own 2 feet. She considers herself a revolutionary, but she's still dependent upon her parents for funding this revolution and holding them accountable for the evils of their generation and of the establishment, so to speak. And so you've got this, and she's in a relationship with a younger man who's clearly gay, and she kind of knows it. She doesn't want a sexual relationship with him, but she wants him close. And so it's a symbiotic kind of twisted kind of relationship. And we follow her as she finds a new place to live in this squat. She really pulls this dilapidated house together and does this like cheapo renovation, making sure it's stable and solid, that they have hot running water, that they're able to get electricity, that they're not going to get thrown out. She goes through all of these things to get these things done. And yet she's a really, really bad revolutionary. So she really is trying to replicate what she's lacking from a home environment in this squat environment, with a bunch of misfits and people that are kind of brought together through all sorts of different means for the cause. And just, it's almost like I mentioned before, it's like a comedy of manners, and instead of a country home, it's a squat in London. And that's really how it feels. Like you see these characters go off on these schemes and with varying levels of success, and you just kind of question, like, what are they doing? And I really wish I could say more, except that that I really, really liked this. And the end really propelled forward. You know, I've been kind of wondering, well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And I kept trying to hypothesize, which I don't do when I read by myself, but I definitely do when I'm buddy reading. And I was not let down by the last quarter of this book. Really great. Highly recommend it. And it was my first Doris Lessing, so really happy that it was such a success. Okay, so it's time for me to talk about my DNF, the controversial DNF of Cloudstreet by Tim Winton. I read this with Greg of Supposedly Fun, who was just a phenomenal, fantastic buddy reader. It was our first buddy read together. And despite the fact that this was not successful, the buddy read was incredibly successful. So look forward to reading more things with him. He put a review. I'll put a link to that below so you can check it out. Now, ironically, I had another book that I was reading with Sean the Book Maniac that we DNF'd together the week before. But Gray has a buddy read going on here. See, there is almost like a buddy read triangle that's happening here, you see? And so we were both really curious because Sean is doing a buddy read of this book with Juan, a Bookish Islander. And so Greg and I are just like, what? We saw that Sean put 5 stars on Goodreads. And we were just like, 5 stars, we DNF'd that, what's going on? And then Sean put his review up in response to Greg's review. So I'll put a link to both of those below because it's just really amusing that all of us are reading the same book at the same time, having completely different responses. So let me set it up for you here. We've got 2 families. We've got the Pickles and the Lambs. The Pickles are helmed by Sam, who is a really kind of a lazy, little bit of a bum. He's pretty much a gambling, shystery kind of character. He was away trying to make some money to pay off some gambling debts and lost a significant number of his fingers in a fishing accident. And that's how we open the story up, and that's where we first meet him. And he really believes in luck. That's kind of his mantra and his driving force through his life. He's married to Dolly. She's kind of lascivious and likes to hang out at the bar and a flirt and very, very kind of voluptuous and slatternly kind of character. And we have the family. There's a few boys, but we really focus on Rose, the daughter. The other family that we come into contact with are the Lambs. And the Lambs are led by Lester. And Lester is he's kind of a failed police officer. He loves to fish. He was very deep into religion. They were a very religious family, he and his wife Oriole, and their many sons, and a couple daughters. Both really big families. They are brought together through hard luck because the Pickles family is willed in a stroke of good luck. They were willed by a deceased relative, a house, a huge house, almost a mansion on Cloudstreet. And they're allowed to live in that mansion, but they're not allowed to sell it for 20 years. So they realize that because Sam is disabled with his hand and just likes to gamble, that the only way they can really make any money is just to share it for their housing. So they portion it off, and the other family comes to live in it. Oriole, being such a kind of take charge kind of woman, she decides to open up a store in her portion of the house that ends up being very successful. So we follow the families as they kind of grow up and all the things that kind of happen between these two. So that's the backstory. The things I liked. There could be really interesting passages and sentences that were bold and really interesting and very vivid, and it felt like a new way of, for me, a new way of expression. And there were a lot of threads. There were a lot of interesting things that were going on. But where this book lost me is that I feel like the weave was too loose, if connected at all. So there were so many questions, so many things that would happen, so many people who would kind of come into the scene and then we would never see them again. And it just felt like this was a debut, and I don't think it was. I don't think this was his first book. I don't think the interiority of these women were really explored. There is a lot of Madonna horror going on. So you've got Oriel being the strong, righteous woman, morally right, but she's not portrayed very nicely. She's not made to be, this lovely character, even though she's doing a lot and carrying a lot for this family. And then you've got Dolly, who's just always at the bar that her daughter Rose has to go get her, and who has affairs and is just kind of a drunk, lascivious woman. Ignoring her family, ignoring herself. And then we have Rose, the daughter, who is literally starving herself in front of everyone. And for some reason is in love with Fish, the son, who is developmentally arrested because of an accident he had when he was a child. The whole family went fishing and he got stuck in the net and drowned and was brought back to life. And that accident caused him to never be the same. And that shook the foundation of what was a faith-based foundation for this family, and ran them out of town. And that's how they ended up being at Cloudstreet. So for a daughter, number one, for these two families to live together in this house and then not really know each other, it felt strange to me, especially children. I'm sorry. Children play together. Children spend time together and get to know each other. And especially if you're living in the same house. So that just seemed preposterous to me. Another thing that seemed preposterous was the fact that, like I said, that Rose would fall in love with Fish, who is developmentally disabled. He really is not all there. And constantly being watched by the family. So there was we didn't understand, we were given no reason why this was, it just was. There were all these characters that would appear and then serve no purpose and just disappear. There was a character named Burl who came and lived with them for a little while and then just gone. And it always seemed, these people seemed to just propel Lester or Sam's stories forward, or Quick's story. Quick is the other brother who at one point mysteriously is swimming and in the river and then starts to glow and gets sick and is glowing for like a month. And it's never explained. There is a speaking pig that only talks to Fish. Never explained. These things were making me batty because there was no rhyme or reason. And at a certain point, I stopped trusting Tim Winton's judgment. And so Greg and I, after our third check-in, so we broke the book into fourths. After the third check-in, so 3/4 of the way done, we both said that we had big questions on if this book was going to deliver. And so we made an agreement that if we had a moment where one more time, like 3 strikes you're out, one more time where we just didn't believe what was happening, we were going to let the other know and make a decision if we were going to bail. So it was just pages into the next section, into the fourth section. And out of nowhere, Rose, who had left the family and was starting this life, and she was having this wonderful like adult life outside. It would seem like free from the strife and drama of what was happening at home and all that dysfunction. She breaks up with that guy and all of a sudden is going to marry someone else. That doesn't make sense. No reason was given except that they took one boat ride. And it was so shocking, and it made, like I said, no sense. And I said, that's it, I'm done. So for me, the biggest challenge, I'm not going to spoil anything because I didn't finish it, so I can't spoil it. But the biggest thing for me is I just didn't trust his ability to weave it all back together, because there were so many strands that were left undone. And I couldn't understand the motivation of any of these characters, aside from the simplest ones. Dolly likes to drink and she likes to have sex. Sam likes to gamble. You know, like that was it. So that was my first and probably last experience with Tim Winton. I'm very, very glad that I read other books for Aussie April that were so much better successes for me. Okay, so let's talk about what I'm currently reading. First up, one good thing that happened is because I was able to get out of finishing Cloudstreet, I had some availability on my reading calendar, and I was able to jump into a buddy read with Elizabeth the Bookish North on this outstanding book. This is Square Haunting: 5 Women, Freedom, and London Between the Wars by Francesca Wade. This book is absolutely remarkable. She had seen it on my channel, and she was gonna get it when she went to London. We were gonna meet up in London next month. But because our plans are all canceled, she ended up ordering it and reached out to me when it came in. I'm so glad we started to read this together because this is absolutely brilliant, and I'm so happy to have someone to gush over each chapter with. This is about a square within the Bloomsbury district of London that happened to feature 5 extraordinary women throughout a certain period of time. And the women are H.D., who was a modernist poet, Dorothy L. Sayers, the creator of my favorite character in literature ever, and that's Harriet Vane from the Lord Peter Wimsey mystery series. Jane Ellen Harrison, who was a classicist and translator, Eileen Power, a historian, broadcaster, and pacifist, and Virginia Woolf. So this, I have to tell you, this is written in such fantastic, the right amount of detail, and beautifully written. I'm loving it, as is she, and can't wait we're just taking one chapter at a time. So thrilled with that. And I'm continuing on with my group read for 18th century women novelists. This is Charlotte Lennox, The Female Quixote. It's also known as Adventures of Arrabella. This is going so well. It's just such a funny madcap little romp. I'm enjoying it, and it makes my Sunday check-ins really fun to have something to discuss that is a little lighter affair. So this is great. I'm also listening to Bluebird by Attica Locke. So Attica Locke, if you don't know, it was just nominated for the long list of the Orwellian Prize for Political Fiction, which I think is a brand new award. Sounds right up my alley. I love political fiction. And she was nominated for Heaven, My Home, which is the second in this mystery series. And so Bluebird is the first. I remember doing the audiobook of it a while ago, but the details weren't really crisp, and so I figured I'd revisit, and it was available in my library, so I jumped on it. So enjoying that. And my buddy has canceled our buddy read of Coventry, completely understandably. Just her essays weren't working for her. I'm enjoying it, so I'm going to keep going. But this is just going to be something that I kind of read in the background here and kind of pick an essay here and there and read it. So that's what's currently in motion. And I have to admit, I'm kind of at a loss for what to read next. I feel like I obviously have a lot of options. I have 3-day weekend in the United States. Monday is a holiday for Memorial Day. So I have time. I'm almost thinking that I need to spend a little time with my New York Review of Books magazine, or the big periodicals, because I have a stack of them that I might want to go through. I have my slightly foxed volumes that I might be good to peruse, and my Paris Review. So I might just spend some time kind of going through those and making sure that I've read those, catching up. And then who knows? I mean, I really don't know where I'd like to go. I don't know what's calling me right now. So I need to peruse my stacks and kind of get the right vibe going. So it'll be a mystery to you and me next week when I tell you what I read. So that's it for me. I hope you had a fantastic week. Please continue to socially distance appropriately. Wash your hands, don't touch your face, and I'll look forward to talking to you again shortly. Thank you. Bye.